Welcome to Talkin Maine. I'm Tom Saviello. Some of you may be tuning in to see Mr. Corey talk about Wilton and its history. We had to flop things a little bit. So I was able to get my good friend, Deputy Chief Ross, to come in and talk about emergency response and some little history about emergency response and so forth. So Clyde, thanks for coming in.
Oh, you're
Appreciate
welcome.
it. You're a young man and you've been involved with the fire service or rescue service, emergency response for how many years?
Well, I've been at it for 50 years.
So you started when you were 10.
I started early because my dad and uncle were both firefighters back in the war years. And of course, we grew up with the fire trucks and fire service. And eventually, in 1971, I decided to make a plunge, and I was accepted.
Cool. Now, we go back, you and I were kind of talking about how the fire service used to be back in the day. I can remember growing up that the fire department in my little town in New Jersey was a party place. I mean, yes, they came out and probably put out the fires or contained them, let's say that, but nowhere went into the buildings and stuff. Was it like that here too?
We didn't have what they call self-contained breathing apparatus for quite a number of years. And if you recall, when we had the big fire downtown, we had one air pack and very few people knew how to use it. And it was a 15-minute pack. Quite a change in the years since that period of time.
Is it really, was 9/11 really the impetus to get more of the changes, or was it already happening before
that? It had already started before that. And there were numerous companies that were selling them. And then, of course, the cost of them was prohibitive. And then you had to train, and it became kind of an evolutionary thing to get people involved in it.
Yeah, I mean, that's some of the things that I've seen is that back in the day, I'm sure the guys that they got turned out how to turn on the hose and point it in the right direction and know that it was going to be pressurized and hold on if you didn't. And that was about it, probably. No, you know, there wasn't a real safety thing because you didn't think about it. You didn't have any protective equipment to go in. Now you've got a substantial amount of equipment.
Protective breathing apparatus and protective equipment has come about full circle since the space age started. It's interesting because of fabrics and other materials and lightweight. This is another factor that you consider. And this did make a big difference when you went from a steel bottle on the self-contained breathing apparatus to a fiberglass bottle. It made a big difference.
Wow.
And then the harness itself has changed appreciably. We always talked about the elephant trunk on the face mask to the tank, and now it's just an incorporated system over your shoulder and a very small tubing that comes to it. You don't even see it.
Yeah, you're right. I hadn't thought about that. I can remember the big old tank coming down.
So this has made a big difference, and of course, the ease of operation makes a big difference too. The ergonomics of it is important for fatigue, if you want to look at it that way.
So what would be a typical set of equipment that a firefighter would have today?
An interior firefighter today start with boots, bunker pants, bunker jacket, helmet, fire hood, gloves, and a self-contained breathing apparatus. Some of them will even have thermal imaging camera on their helmet or some other kind of device that would give them light or would give them indication of adverse atmosphere. So it's a matter of how much you can get on and how much you want to wear. The availability of material is almost endless.
So I call it the heavy raincoat.
Right.
So that has also changed since
tremendously. We started out. I had a rubber coat.
Okay, I was just going to say I thought it was a rubber coat.
A rubber coat came down midway of your thighs. I had a plastic helmet, which today is not necessarily plastic, but a composite material. And then, of course, went to Nomex, which again is a space age material. Went from shedding water to absorbing water. The cloth will absorb a certain amount of water, so you add weight in a situation where you're going to get wet. So that's another factor that you have to think about.
So the coats today will add water to
you can absorb a certain amount of moisture in the fabric. With the old rubber coat, of course, the water ran off, but the new fabrics will absorb a certain amount.
And that actually helps them with the fire protection somewhat.
Well, yes and no, but you have what you call a thermal barrier, then you have a shield, and so it's a universal weather coat, really. You wear the same coat summer, winter, fall, and and that's it. Sometimes you get pretty warm, other times you're glad you have that
Nearly.
warmth. But you will sweat, there's no question about it, and of course, again, the materials will absorb some of that moisture.
And but it keeps you maybe a little cooler if you're in a hot spot.
Well,
maybe not.
I don't know about that, but you will be quite wet when you're done. And of course, gloves have made substantial changes from a plastic mitten or plastic gloves to, again, very malleable material, so you have dexterity with your hands and can hold materials and equipment.
It's interesting because I can remember the raincoats as a kid. They were black most cases, with a couple of the fluorescent stripes on the back, so you could see somebody going from there. And the cost of this equipment is skyrocketed.
I won't say the word ridiculous, but it is expensive to outfit a firefighter. If you're looking at just the clothing itself, you're looking in the neighborhood of $3,500 to $4,000.
Oh my goodness!
But starting from boots to helmet, and then of course your air packs today, your self-contained breathing apparatus, they're anywhere $5,000 and up.
Yeah, I know that as a town selectman,
Yeah.
we did purchasing that for our fire department, but we have no choice because your mission's completely different too than it used to be.
Well, you look at the construction industry today, what you have for materials in new buildings versus old buildings. Fire is hotter and it burns quicker, and the structures, I like to say, are not as sturdy as they used to be, because you have composite materials inside. You take a 2x4 or a 2x10 that was a good wooden structure versus something that's compressed wood.
With glues and everything
And
else.
all the materials in it. And then that glue, of course, will give off chemical residues, and who knows what's in there. And so you have to be very careful, and that's why self-contained breathing apparatus is so essential, because of atmosphere.
I can remember a couple years ago when I was in the legislature, because the other thing you have is flame retardants that got put into all the furniture.
You're right.
And the purpose for that was so that when somebody, and it was California that was actually the driver of it, because they had too many people who smoked and sat in their chair and caught their thing on fire. So they put all these rules and regulations, and since they're the biggest supplier, or were at the time, of fabrics for furniture, like God knows where it comes from now, they put all this flame retardant in it. And now there's real great evidence that yes, it may stop the fire, but it smolders like the devil, and it gives off some pretty nasty stuff.
The incomplete combustion is what we get in a lot of materials today, because they don't have flammability, they just kind of smolder. That's toxic material.
Yeah, and I remember that bill we had in the legislature sitting down with Terry and saying, Terry, what do you want to do? Because some of the evidence was but some of it was really strong, and he really said, I really want you to pass this. So we did. Yeah. Contrary to the producers of the product, they were a little mad at me, but I didn't care. I said, you got to protect the firefighters.
Protect everybody. Yeah. Big thing is today, very few people die of flame. They die of asphyxia, which who knows what they're breathing in a very short period of time.
Yeah, so you can go into a fire, get the fire out, and find somebody not burned at all.
Right.
But they're gone because they breathe the wrong stuff.
The heat and the toxicity is what gets them.
So what would the kind of training these guys go through to be a firefighter today?
We just completed what they call Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 2, and it will vary from 250 to 300 hours of training. Wow. Nights, weekends, and then live drills. There is substantial bookwork that goes with this. Some people don't keep up with it, and it's a problem for them. Today you can do a lot of it online, and then of course you have in-house, and then you have hands-on material. You can be certified Firefighter 1 and 2 upon successful completion of a written and a dexterity or manual skills test. Then, of course, you continue training throughout the time, and we have gone back to what we like to call basic firefighting. That's hose advancements, water pressure, ladders, forcible entry. These are the things that are going to get you where you want to go the quickest. Yeah, you can have the high and low angle rescue departments. You can have dive teams. These are extras, hazardous material technicians, but it all takes time. And today, with the society that we have, time becomes a very strong factor. people's jobs away from town, people's jobs at odd hours, and you don't have the people stepping up today that want to give that time and dedication to it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, and thinking about the training, having gone over to the high school when you guys did your joint training with all the other fire departments, you have so much you've got to cover.
Oh yeah, and we have a very nice training facility now.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that.
Through the legislature and the Fire Grant Act. We're fortunate, along with a couple other areas, to get a facility. And I hope that the surrounding communities, not necessarily Franklin County, but surrounding communities with an hour and a half drive, can come and use that facility. And it is a facility that has a variety of opportunities, from live fire burns to using your ropes to descend, ladder placement, ventilation, hose advancement through different rooms or stairwells, or even on the outside of the building. We also have an opportunity there to do extrication with automobiles. We have an area that kind of designated for that, so you could actually have a car fire there. You can actually have extrication practice with materials that they bring in. It's almost unlimited as to what you can do. We have a wood water supply, we've got a hydrant, we've got pump facilities.
Sounds like we need to come do a show on that place.
You need to go up there and have a tour sometime.
Yeah.
But it is a very fine facility. It took a while to get it going, but with the legislature's assistance, with donations from local businesses and individuals, we were able to get a very fine facility to go along with the fire training program that we have at Mount Blue.
And so are there students, does Mount Blue still have its technical program?
They still have that program. Interesting enough, last year, because of the COVID, it was limited to a very small number. I don't know just what the enrollment will be this year, but we do get a number of students in that program. And wherever they go after they've successfully completed their class, usually they've completed firefighter 1 and 2 by the end of the year, they go into a community and become a very useful department member, whether it's Farmington, Wilton, Jay, wherever they go, they have that credential with them.
So they actually will get their certificate when they finish up?
They can do that, yes they can.
John Churchill still teaching that?
He's still doing it.
Yeah, he's a Fayette fire.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Is he the deputy chief or assistant chief there?
I really don't know what his title is now.
Something like that. I see John quite a bit when I go down to Fayette.
Yeah.
And that's a nice little program up there. So you actually can have a fire up there and put it out?
Yes, we have 2 burn rooms in that,
Really?
in that structure. And again, you just don't go in and set a fire. You've got to have numerous people there. You've got to have certain materials that you can burn and can't burn, and it's very controlled. Interesting enough, some people think it's not necessary, but it is, because you want to maintain the structure first of all, and you want to do it in a safe and orderly manner.
Well, it just makes sense to me to have something like that. I mean, I'm glad that you guys finally got it, because it makes all the sense in the world to train realistically. Because if you train and train and train, when it actually is the real thing, it just becomes automatic.
Yeah. It's you can't be doing something 75% of the time. You've got to be able to do it very quickly and do it correctly.
So if in the response realm, so if I were calling, there was a fire called in, how would the group respond?
Well, we are fortunate in Farmington to have full-time firefighters, 24/7, 7 days a week. Again, thanks to the citizens of Farmington who, over a period of time, saw this to be necessary with the population and what we have here for dwellings and people in institutions. They would immediately respond hopefully within 2 minutes.
Wow.
The call people would come in on the end of that, so to speak, as they would come from their homes or businesses or wherever they would be at that time. And you would have probably at least 2, possibly 3 apparatus that would respond to the situation depending on what the call is. There are some calls that we don't have to have a lot of people participate in. There are other calls, of course, you need a full company, and then you call in your neighbors because you just don't have people.
Mutual aid.
And the mutual aid is a godsend, not only to this town, but to many communities across the entire state.
And mutual aid, for those that aren't watching it, just say that if you have an incident in Farmington but you need extra hands, Wilton can be called in or Jay can be called in, and they're under the same work protections that they normally would have because they've been called into the situation.
Right. And the interesting thing with mutual aid, even today, we do train together. We do have common meetings and discuss policies and procedures. And through the training, we get to know each other better, and we know the skills that we can call upon in neighboring towns.
And you actually do some pre-planning too, if I remember.
There are a number of pre-plans. It takes time, and of course, once you get it pre-planned, somebody's going to change it because they're going to make an addition or a deletion, or the building is going to be a different purpose. So it's a continuum, and you can't keep up with it because there's just so much of it going on. But we do have pre-plans for many of the facilities in town here.
I remember in Wilton, they used to have one for the old the woolen mill.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, that was just a case of stage the trucks and protect the other houses.
Well, you know, the schools have been very helpful in giving us layouts of schools and knowing where certain facilities are kept, and it does make a difference. You know, you go to, we'll take Mount Blue High School, for example, the size of it. You just can't drive up there and start looking. You have to know a location. And the systems within them, the fire alarm systems, sometimes will tell you a zone or an area where the alarm is coming from. So it makes it easier for you to get to that facility. So
by pulling the alarm doesn't necessarily just mean it's a general alarm. You probably can tell where that alarm came from.
It may be a general alarm, but the display panel board will point to particular zones. So you can have, somebody can look at it and you'll have a blinker on there indicating that's where the tone came from.
And you have the same relationship with a lot of the businesses that are here.
A lot of businesses, and we have what they call a Knox box with a common key that the fire department has, and the owner doesn't even have a key to it. So we can get into a facility rather than breaking into the facility. We just open the door and go in.
And that key is just a key for getting into the facility.
Getting into the facility and to the area that the property owner wants you to be able to get into.
Wow.
So what's in that box may vary to one key or it may be several keys. And the boxes do vary in size because of the size of buildings that you need to get into, which has made it much easier to get to the seat of something rather than waiting for someone to come and unlock the door. You don't want to break into it or break windows if you don't have to. And we encourage people to, when they build a facility, to put a Knox box on.
Makes life a lot easier.
For everybody.
Everybody, yeah. And I remember that being talked about, but is it not called a Knox box?
Yes, K-N-O-X.
K-N-O-X.
Yeah.
Huh, interesting. I know that the issue of recruiting is tough. I mean, it used to be in the day that everybody that worked in town was part of the fire department.
Right.
So if there was an incident, and like at Bashu, when Bashu was in Wilton, they knew that they could release their workers because someday that fire might be at their facility, and they certainly want their guys to be prepared. But that's changed so much now.
Changed appreciably today, and you can understand with a shortage of people wanting to work or working, and then having somebody leave the business, it's going to leave the business owner short-handed. How long is that person going to be gone? You have no idea. It may be 20 minutes, it may be 2 hours, and this does make a difference. And many business owners are very reluctant today to give people that time.
So how are you guys recruiting? How are the numbers? I know that when Terry came on one time, the average age was 100.
Well, the average age is up. There's no question about it. But word of mouth is the primary way of recruiting. A lot of people in our communities do not look for a want ad or hiring people in the newspaper. It's word of mouth. There is a legacy in families that follows along with that. And then there are some people that are just wanting to do fire service work, and therefore they come and make application and probably are accepted or at least given an opportunity on a probationary basis to see if it fits them. There are people that the fire service does not fit, and there are others who will just take it and run.
Yeah.
And so it's word of mouth, it's the education like at the high school, and other programs of similar nature throughout the state. It's interesting how many vocational programs there are in Maine. And we started it back in '01 thanks to the legislature and director of the tech center and fire chief, and it has worked out.
And you're actually in this thing that this is a regional school, so you've got kids. This is not just Farmington. These are SAB 9 students. You've got some from Livermore Falls, or have in the past, because I've gone to some of the graduations. Livermore Falls, Rangeley, and so forth. They come down to be part of this.
Anybody that wants to come to that program and furnish his or her transportation probably would be welcome. And we've had students from Peru. We've had students from Oakland that have come to it. And we've had adults come to that program in the past years, depending upon what their schedule was. So it's not limited just to high school students. Adult education could also be involved in it if they so desired.
Now, the kids that do come to that don't have to buy their equipment, though. You provide that.
They have to be sponsored by a fire department.
Fire department, okay,
And
all right.
the fire department will give them the necessary materials and support that they need.
Okay.
And fire departments over the years have been very supportive of bringing apparatus to live burns or to training for pumping hose advancements and things of that nature. So it's been a regional support program. Hopefully the sending schools will continue to do that, and we have in the past gone to talk to guidance counselors and also students who were interested in the fire program.
Now, doesn't University of Southern Maine Community College or Southern Maine Community College have a firefighting program?
They do, fire science, and we've gone down there with the class on several occasions to visit the school and get the insight of what the fire science program entails, and we've had several students from our program go to Southern Maine, graduate with an associate degree, and become professional firefighters across the state, from Bangor to South Portland, Scarborough, and all places in between. It's a good program, and the students coming out of that program do well. We, of course, want people to be involved with EMS, emergency medical, and that's the trend today is EMS people, and then we train them to be firefighters. It's just 180 degree switch. We used to do it the other way around. We'd train firefighters, and then they become EMS, and now we train EMS to become firefighters.
Oh, no kidding. Wow.
But that's the emphasis today. And
so what we could do real quick before I forget is let's put Clyde's phone number up. Because if he said that he would take a call if anybody has a question on this thing about participating in these training programs and so forth. 778-2809 is right there, Clyde. You see it? It's right below my finger.
All right.
But for more information, don't hesitate to give Clyde a call, because he'd certainly like to have you join part of what's going on out there.
The more information we get out there and talk to people and answer their questions, the better they understand what goes on. The fire department is always open for people to come and see what goes on and ask questions. Like I told you earlier, we are the stewards of town property.
That's a good point, so keep going on that.
And the citizen entrusts us with several millions of dollars worth of equipment. We try to take care of it the best we can and use it most economically. It's their facility. Come and visit, say hello, shoot the breeze with the guys. It's your facility.
And then you started to talk a little bit about the fire trucks, because the quality of the fire trucks, although they can perform, they're not as nice as or as sturdy as they used to be.
The fabric, the material in which they're making things out of today does not meet the standard that it did, we'll say, 15 and 20 years ago. I mean, that's across the board, not just fire trucks, but even our own personal cars and things that you buy. It's, what is it called, manufactured obsolescence. It's there, and it's real. So, fire trucks that used to last 25, 30 years, today may only last 20. And interestingly enough, people say, well, you don't use it. You don't use that fire truck. Well, that's money in your pocket. Why do we go out? We go out because there is a situation that requires our services. And, it's like the bill is $10, and if 10 of us pay it, that's $1 a piece. However, we get one of those people drop out, 9 of us have got to pay the $10 bill. Same thing is true if we lose property. The rest of us have to pick up that slack, because the towns have the same amount of money that they've got to raise
Yeah.
So if you take away businesses, you take away property, that's taxpayer dollars.
Well, I think about it differently. That's why I've always helped Sonny at the fire department, is that truck might be the truck that puts the fire out at my house.
Absolutely.
And so my insurance rate, and people forget about that, my insurance rate is driven by your capacity to come out and put that fire out. So if you're lacking a truck there, I may actually be paying more on my insurance rating, or my rating be more dangerous, therefore my insurance premium would be higher if you guys weren't able to respond.
People always ask, how much is it going to change my insurance? It may not change it appreciably, but it will either keep it the way it is or reduce it over a period of time because of the quality of services. And it's not just fire department, it's dispatch, it's water, and what you have for availability of personnel that all factor into that. And this is a complicated situation when you start talking about insurance.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it gets, but that's the way I always think about it, is that that's going to be the one truck. Just show me that you really need it, and I will never question it. And Sonny knows that over in Wilton.
It's interesting. That truck sits down there 24/7, fully loaded, ready to go, I'm going to say in an instant. So it's got to be kept up. It's got to be used by operators so they're familiar with it, so that when they use it, we give you the best service that we can.
Yeah, and you know, even if some people think, well, why are you giving rides to kids like we did? But that's important because that's getting the driver so that he has more time behind the wheel, because he may not be going out on an emergency, but he's actually using the roads and so forth, that he needs to learn how to do it.
I like to have it as a public relations thing, because those children are going to be the taxpayers of tomorrow. And if they're comfortable, they're going to be more willing to support fire departments. I was told many years ago when I used to go down to Lewiston that you go up on the schoolhouse roof and get the wiffle ball or the disc or whatever's up there, and you throw
The
that
cat in the tree. That's
oh,
what you
yeah, no. But those kids remember that the fire department came and got the stuff off the roof that we'd thrown up there somehow. And when it comes time to pay taxes or be participatory or vote, those people may be the ones that make the difference.
The way I think about it is back when I was in kindergarten, and it was Fire Prevention Day, and the fire truck showed up, and we all got to go stand on the back, and then get off the back, and then hold the hose, and didn't have water coming through it because they're probably taking those kindergartners and flipped them off. Yeah. And that was a long time ago, but that's what was my first introduction to the fire department.
And that's how you get people interested in the fire service, by showing your equipment, letting people come and put their hands on it and ask questions about it. Yeah. And that's, it's just good PR.
So Clyde, what you're saying too, for the people that are watching this show, if you really want to see it, come to the fire department.
Absolutely, the door's open.
Yeah, I mean, I've been there for other reasons, but right. I know the doors are open, and I always feel welcome when I come in. And both whether it be my fire department or Farmington's fire department, the guys are very proud of what they've got.
We have a lot of youth groups that come in. We try to get out to visit senior areas. We try to accommodate small groups of people. Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts have come for years. Some youth groups, 4-H clubs have come for a tour and ask questions about, we'll say, farm safety, or about living in an apartment building, or what do I do in this situation. So those are all important characteristics.
Wow. So as we get ready to close, what words would you like to give to people about the fire department that they might they remember the beginning of the show and the end of the show?
Well, I would say that they need to remember that it's there for their use. We're at your beck and call, so to speak. But at the same time, we have educational materials that will help you be a better citizen and protect yourself and your family. Think about smoke alarms. We have a program. If you need a smoke alarm, don't hesitate to come to your fire department and ask them, because they have ways of getting smoke alarms for you. And we'll talk to you about use, talk to you about taking care of them and maintenance of it. So it's something that people need to be familiar with, because it is their opportunity for safety. And it's their opportunity to see where their tax dollar goes.
And protect themselves and protect their families and their property. So,
yeah.
Clyde, thank you. That was
great.
Thank
you.
Great
I've enjoyed this.
Great conversation.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. Thanks. And again, Clyde's phone number, we can put it up real quick, Tommy, if you could, in case you have any questions related to this, so you can give you a call. I think it's coming slowly but surely, but maybe not. But anyway, you saw it before, 778-2809. Right. Thank you. And thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.